These last few weeks, we have been feasting and celebrating and partying in the best senses, in the holiest senses of those words. We have celebrated St. Bridget's Oktoberfest. We have celebrated St. Gabriel's Oktoberfest and Fall Festival. And tonight we celebrate the great fest of the archangels. And we have gathered here tonight to feast and to celebrate and to enjoy one another's company and to give thanks and praise to God for the unbelievable patronage of St. Gabriel over both of our parishes. But it's not the only feasting that's been going on. There is, in fact, other feasts, and in particular one feast that we've been invited into that is tonight's antithesis, and the antithesis of these past few weeks, the opposite. Whereas these feasts that we have gone through are holy and set apart and divinely inspired and filled with disciples. The one we're being invited into is much more demonic, is much more diabolical, much more insidious, and absolutely and utterly destructive. This past week, we all witnessed, many of us watched, most of us read about what happened on Thursday and everything leading up to Thursday, which was the Senate hearing and the continued hearings surrounding Judge Kavanaugh's confirmation onto the Supreme Court. And this Thursday's hearing was a hearing of Judge Kavanaugh, who was accused and is accused of sexual assault during his high school years. And it was also a hearing for his accuser, the one who was sexually assaulted, Dr. Christina Blasey Ford. And I don't know if I could have dreamed up. In fact, there's no way I could have dreamed up a worse way for all of that to play out. I don't know if any of us could have ever dreamt up a worse way to try and discover truth than a panel of politicians in front of national television. That is about the worst way we could ever get at truth. And none of us is any closer to discovering and knowing beyond certainty the truth of the matter. And I don't anticipate we will be. And so, in this instance, everyone is left to determine the truth for themselves. And this begins the feast and victory of what Pope Benedict termed as the dictatorship of relativism. Where when we cannot determine truth or truth cannot be determined, we're going to decide for ourselves. I determine what is true and what is not. That is the situation we are in, and that is the great victory and feast of relativism that we are being invited into. And because every one of us is and will continue to be left to ourselves to determine what is true, the faceless mob of who can scream the loudest has once again been awakened. And no matter which side either mob falls on, they're feasting on whoever gets in their way. They're feasting on whoever gets in their way, and those are real lives, real people whose lives are being upended before our very eyes. And guys, every victim of sexual assault needs to be believed. And at the same time, anyone who is accused of a crime is deserving, and it's enshrined in our law, is deserving of the presumption of innocence until proven otherwise. Victims of sexual assault need to be believed, and anyone who is accused must be given the presumption of innocence until proven otherwise. And those two things are extremely difficult to hold in balance, as we well know as citizens of the United States. But here's the thing, relativism, the dictatorship of relativism states that neither of those two things are necessary. No one needs to believe a victim of sexual assault, and no one needs to presume innocence of someone who's accused. Rather, it states that truth is whatever I want it to be. Truth is whatever I want it to be. And if we get enough people believing this truth or truth is this and truth is not that, if we get enough people believing that, we have mob rule and the demise of democracy. That's the fire we're playing with right now. And that's the feast, the demonic and diabolical feast we are all being invited into. And tonight, don't go. Don't go to that feast. Because tonight we have a greater feast. Tonight we have a feast that God provides for us in all of his bounty, infinite bounty. And this feast that we celebrate tonight, it is the furthest thing from diabolical. It is the furthest thing from the demonic. And it is the furthest thing from relativism and mob rule. It celebrates truth, whose name is Jesus Christ. And we all gather around this altar as equals, bowing before that truth, Jesus Christ. And this feast is not demonic, it is not diabolical, it is divine. It is angelic. It is the feast of the archangels and of our great patron, Saint Gabriel.